Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and in today's Death Guard Tactics I will be looking at the Demon Engines for our Death Guard army and their weapon options, and looking at which options could be the best for each type and the damage they can be doing. So without no further ado, let's jump into it. We have 3 Demon Engines in the Death Guard arsenal. We have the heavy support type, the Plagueburst Crawler, which is a very popular unit. Then we have the fast attack Foetid Bloatdrone and the fast attack Myphitic Blighthauler. So in this video I will be comparing the various weapon options and their damage output in ranged and melee combat for these units. And in a next upcoming video I will be comparing the units point for point to say if you need a strong ranged unit, which one gives you most bang for your buck. So stay tuned for that video, but for now let's focus on the weapon options for them individually. So what weapon options are the best for our Demon Engines? Let's have a look. Let's start by looking at the baseline stats comparison of the Demon Engines. So we have the Plagueburst Crawler has 3 brackets depending on wounds. It has and the Foetid Bloatdrone as well, and the Myphitic Blighthauler does not have any brackets. The common features for all the demonic engines in the Death Guard army is that they are high durable. They have all of them have an invul save of 5+. They have the disgusting resilience ability. They have high toughness, so Blighthauler and Bloatdrone have toughness 7, and the Plagueburst Crawler has toughness 8. And they have quite a lot of wounds, so from 8 for the Blighthauler up to 12 for the Plagueburst Crawler. And we have with the Ironclad relic, if you take the Poxmonger's Plague Company for a character that's close to the Demon Engines, they get 4+ invul save instead of the 5+ invul save, which means that the durability is even higher. The Demon Engines have nice mobility compared to most other Death Guard units that are quite slow. So here we see the movement for the Blighthauler and the Bloatdrone is 10 inches, and the Plagueburst Crawler is 9 inches. The Plagueburst Crawler and the Foetid Bloatdrone, they degrade their movement if they become damaged, but not the Myphitic Blighthauler. So it's quite nice to have a unit that can go at least let's say 9-10 inches instead of the 4-5 we have with most other of our units. All of them explode when destroyed for extra damage. The Plagueburst Crawler explodes on a 6+. The Foetid Bloatdrone and the Blighthauler explode on a 4+. They do 1 mortal wound, while the Plagueburst Crawler does D3 mortal wounds, but only explodes on a 6+. But remember, we have the stratagem Putrid Detonation for 1 command point to make sure that the vehicle definitely explodes when we want it to explode, and maybe take out some of the units that have charged it or are close to it if they destroy it in melee combat. All of them suffer by a quite low ballistic skill of 4+. So ballistic skill is around 4+, and this would be an extra problem, I guess, going forward, where we will also probably be losing our reroll ones to hit, now that these auras will mostly be for the core units. And then if we see the Bloatdrone has the fly ability. The Blighthauler is quite interesting because it can have multiple models in the unit. You can have 3 models in your Blighthauler unit, and then they get a +1 to hit. So in this case, they will be their ballistic skill and weapon skill will basically be 3+, which can make a big difference, as we can see a bit later. They also have an interesting ability. They provide cover for infantry wholly within 7 inches. It's quite good to bring, let's say, and have some Plague Marines inside this area. And as I said, they don't have a bracket. The Plagueburst Crawler has the highest toughness and strength. It doesn't have a very good melee ability. It's only 6+ weapon skill, but the Bloatdrone and the Blighthauler, they have 4+. And we also have that, unfortunately for the Plagueburst Crawler, the ballistic skill degrades when it's bracketed. So hitting on a 5+, then you are starting to lose quite a lot of shots. But let's look at their weapon options. So the weapon options and statistics. So we have the Plagueburst Crawler is 130 points base, and we have as the standard weapon for no cost is the mortar, which is a heavy D6 weapon with a long range up to 48 inches, but minimum 12 inches, and it is a plague weapon with a strength 8, -2, and damage D3, and it has the blast ability, and yeah, it has a D6 shots every turn. So this is a very good weapon, and it also has the ability that the mortar can shoot also units that are not inside. So you can have them in the backfield, and then they can be shooting targets that are trying to hide. This is quite useful. And then you have two slots with 2 options each. So in the side weapons, you have the option of 2 entropy cannons or 2 spitters for 30 points for the entropy cannons and 40 for the spitters. The entropy cannons are heavy 2, range 36, and they have a high strength 8, -4 AP, and D6 damage. And is it a plague weapon? No, but if you use the accelerated entropy stratagem before battle, this weapon is treated as a plague weapon, which is very significant for Death Guard, and it does a minimum 3 damage on the D6 roll. So this is really good, and I think if you take the entropy cannons, it's definitely worth upgrading them to the accelerated entropy. And one Plagueburst Crawler with the upgrade is also affecting the other Plagueburst Crawlers close by, that they also get the plague weapon ability on their entropy cannon. The spitters, they cost a bit more. They are assault. When you have 2 of them, you have 2 D6 weapons, and yeah, the 2 shots here are for both entropy cannons, so you get 1 shot per each cannon. The range is only 9 inch as a spitter. It's a plague weapon. The strength is the user, -1 AP, minus damage, but importantly, it's an auto hit weapon, and therefore it doesn't suffer for any bad ballistic skill. And hopefully, as we have seen all other flamers being announced to increase the range to at least 12 inches, hopefully we could get this also for our Death Guard, the plague spitters. In the hull weapon, there is the option of the slugger and the volley gun. The volley gun is the standard is the slugger, and then you have to pay +5 points for the volley gun. You have 4 shots with the slugger, 3 with the volley gun. The slugger has a better range, and what the volley gun offers is 1 more strength, 1 more AP. And in melee combat, basically it doesn't have any melee weapon, so it just attacks with itself, let's say. So it's the strength of the user, AP 0 and damage 1, and basically it has a strength 7 down to strength 5, but with a weapon skill of 6+, you will not be doing a lot of damage in melee by the melee weapon. If we look at the Bloatdrone, the base is 115 points, and then you have 3 options for the weapons. So you can have 2 times the spitters. It's the same spitters that can be on the Plagueburst Crawler. You have the Hvy Blightlauncher, which is an assault 6 weapon. 36-inch range. It's a plague weapon, and it has like a blight launcher like the Plague Marines have, or the Blightlord Terminators, with strength 6, AP -2, and D3 damage. And then you have the flesh mower or grass mower, or what it is. It's the cheapest option. It's a melee weapon, so +2 strength, -2 AP, and 2 damage flat, and this gives you 6 extra attacks with this weapon. So this is quite good. So basically, with a Bloatdrone, that would be a strength 8, and if it's bracketed down to strength 6 type of weapon, and the base attacks are 3, so you would get, let's say, 9 attacks with strength 8. So this is quite interesting for melee. But then, of course, if you have this weapon, you don't have any shooting ability with the Bloatdrone. Additionally, the Bloatdrone has the Plague Probe as a standard, which is a melee weapon with a strength, basically the user, strength 6 down to 4, so it's AP -2, a D3 damage. So and with a 4+ weapon skill, the Bloatdrone can do some damage in melee by itself. If we look at the Myphitic Blighthauler, we don't have any options. So basically it has a standard loadout for 100 points. It has a multi-melta, heavy 1 shot, 24 inches, 8 -4 D6, and this is will change to a heavy 2, and the damage at half range will be D6 +2. So this will be up and coming. The question is if the cost will increase, but it would be quite significant to get 2 shots instead of 1 with a multi-melta, and especially if you come into half range and you can hit some vehicles, it could be quite damaging. Then it has a bile spurt, which is an assault T3 weapon, and it has a range of 12 inches. So a blast weapon as well, and it's a plague weapon. And then it has a missile launcher, which you can either shoot with a frag missile or a Krak missile. So the frag missiles, you have D6 shots at 48 inches, strength 4, AP0 damage 1s, and it's also a blast weapon. So this is like quite like a grenade or something like this, but with a long range. And then you have the Krak missile for tougher targets, where you have 1 shot at 48 inches with strength 8, AP -2, and damage D6. So this could also be if it hits, and you can score a lot of damage, but again you only have 1 shot with this weapon. And then it has the gnashing maw, so it's like the plague probe of the Bloatdrone, a melee weapon, where it's a plague weapon. It has the user strength, which always will be strength 6 until it's alive, and you have AP -2, damage 1. So basically, this, as I summarizing a bit, there are some options. The speeders with auto hit can be a good option, since they counteract the only 4+ ballistic skill. And importantly, now with the 9th edition, they can be shot in melee with no penalty because you have auto hit. Normally in melee, the weapons of the units of the vehicles can shoot, but at -1 to hit, and you cannot shoot the blast weapons in melee. So this is quite good for all these 2 units. If they are locked into combat, they can still shoot their speeders with auto hit in the shooting phase. Hopefully, as I said, we'll receive a range boost like the flamers. The blast weapons are good versus massed infantry units, but cannot be shot in melee, like the mortar and for example the bile spurt and the frag missile. All Bloatdrone weapons are plague weapons. This is quite nice, and you, as I said, only 1 loadout for the Blighthauler, and will be benefiting when the multi-melta weapon will be updated, but the question is, will we see a point increase? So now let's go through each of the units to see what are the best weapons. Starting with the Plagueburst Crawler, let's look at the ranged weapon options, and first look at the entropy cannons versus the plague spitters that are the choices for the side weapons. And the entropy cannons are 30 points, and here I assume we have upgraded them to plague weapons and minimum 3 damage. So here is quite a busy graph, but here are the wounds on average that the 2 shots of entropy cannons will do, and the 2 d6 shots of the plague spitters will do. And what we can see here is we have 54 different targets, and then we see how much wounds will be done on average. So here, for example, in this side we have the targets with 4+ invul save, and on this side we have targets with no invul save. So here is targets with a 2+ armor save, 3+ armor save, 4+ armor save, and so on. And for each of these bunches of targets, we have the toughness increases from, let's say, toughness 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for all of them. So we have 54 different targets. So we can see, for example, here a unit, for example, that has a toughness 4 and 3+ save and no invul save would be an intercessor. And here we could see that, for example, the plague spitters would be on average doing around 3 wounds, but the entropy cannon shooting on a 2 wound target would be doing 2 wounds on average for the 2 shots. If we look at the for example, a 3+ save unit with toughness 7, that's the Predator. Here we would see the entropy cannon 2 shots on a multiple wound target would be doing around 3 wounds, while the plague spitters would only be doing 1.5 wound on average, and so on. So what we can see, summarizing here, is that the plague spitters, the light blue, always does more damage than the entropy cannons when shooting at wound 1 and wound 2 targets, because then you don't really benefit from the d6 wounds of your entropy cannon. And this is, of course, if you can come to 9 inches, because there is a very big range difference of the speeders and the entropy cannon. The plague speeders always do better damage with low toughness units with either invul save or bad armor save. So here, for example, here we have some horde type units like orc boys with toughness 4 and 6+ save. Then the speeders can do 5.5, 6 damage on average here, while the entropy cannons basically for one wound target they will all be killing 1 on average. Entropy cannons do best damage, of course, versus multiple wound targets like vehicles and monsters, and high toughness target with good armor saves, but not the invul saves, because typically for invul saves targets you want to put a lot of shots in so that they can't save everything. Entropy cannons have the range advantage of 36 inches and are cheaper. So basically the choice of entropy cannon and plague speeder is more how do you plan to use your Plagueburst Crawlers. Are they more for backfield and artillery, or do you want to move them forward and or use it as self-defense, the speeder, or trying to go to your opponent and surprise them with your aggressive Plagueburst Crawlers? Yep. So the other option for the Plagueburst Crawler would be the Slugger or the volley gun for the hull-based weapon. The volley gun is +5 points. So basically we see that we have quite a similar damage output. Again, it's for the same type of targets here. The volley gun has a better performance at the most armor saving targets and the toughness 5 and toughness 6 targets, because of course it has a higher strength than the Slugger. The Slugger is better for tougher targets because you have more shots, and the toughness 4 and the targets with invul save typically. But it's not like you get a very big advantage with a volley gun, and because of the lower range, it's probably better to save the 5 points and just go with a Slugger, and then you have the same range as the entropy cannons. So you can position yourself as 36 inches, shoot your entropy cannons and your heavy Slugger at some different targets. Then if we look at the Plagueburst Crawlers in melee, so here let's assume here we are in the 9th edition, that the Plagueburst Crawler starts its turn locked in melee combat. So it's our own turn. So basically we can shoot the weapons on the target, but we cannot shoot the mortar on the target because they have a blast, so we cannot shoot. But then the other cannons or the speeders or whatever, they can hit with -1 to hit. So for the cannons it will be 5+ to hit, so it's not very good. And then in the fight phase, the Plagueburst Crawler fights with its melee attacks, which is only a 6+. So here we are comparing the Plagueburst Crawler with entropy cannons as Slugger, and the Plagueburst Crawler with speeders and Slugger. And here we can see for melee combat, the speeders are clearly the better weapon for melee and self-defense, because they don't have any penalty to hit, and you can hit multiple. You have multiple shots for a variety of targets. So you see here the orange is always doing much more damage than the blue line. And with the gray here at the bottom, you see what is actually the contribution of the Plagueburst Crawler's melee attacks. So 3 attacks with a weapon skill 6+, they do negligible damage. So the only damage basically in melee is that you can shoot your cannons and your speeders, or you need to fall back. But yeah, so the -1 to hit really hurts the cannons, but it doesn't affect the speeders, which makes the speeders the best option if your Plagueburst Crawler gets locked in melee, or you want to use it to get into melee or close by to the enemy. Continuing with the Foetid Bloatdrone, let's look at the ranged weapon options. So basically we have either the speeders for 40 points or the Hvy Blightlauncher for 25 points. And again, when we see all the targets here, we have quite similar damage output for most targets. The Hvy Blightlauncher is cheaper than the speeders and has of course the range advantage, because you can shoot at 36 inches while the speeders are only 9 inches. So here we can see that for an intercessor type unit, we will be doing around 3 wounds, both with the speeders and the heavy Blightlauncher. But of course, the heavy Blightlauncher we could shoot from a big distance. If we look at the Foetid Bloatdrone in melee, so again, assuming the Bloatdrone starts in turn locked in melee in our own turn, we can shoot the weapon on the target with -1 to hit. Again, that would be 5+, and then fight with its 3 attacks with a melee plague weapon, which will have a 4+ weapon skill in the fight phase. So we are comparing the Bloatdrone with the speeders, the heavy Blightlauncher, and the flesh mower. And here we can see that the flesh mower, which is the gray line, does the highest damage, and it can do some serious damage to a lot of units. For example, intercessors, we will be doing with this weapon, we will be doing 6 wounds on average, and we can even score wounds on high toughness targets quite consistently. And it's the cheapest option with 125 points. However, then if you choose the flesh mower, you're only going for melee with a Foetid Bloatdrone, and you don't have any shooting ability. The speeders are a good choice, so it's quite similar damage, or a bit lower than the flesh mower, but quite good damage. So the speeders they have a high damage in melee, and they keep some range shooting capability and overwatch and defensive capability, because you can shoot your plague speeders with no penalty in melee combat. And the heavy Blightlauncher, as expected, probably has the lowest. The orange line here has the lowest wounds in melee. Here we can see that the Bloatdrone can do some decent damage in melee even without shooting its ranged weapons. So the 3 attacks with its Plague Probe can do quite a significant. They can do 1-2 wounds for most targets. But yeah, so if you need your Foetid Bloatdrone to go for melee only, then consider the flesh mower as a cheaper option. But if you want to keep the shooting ability and be able to have good damage in melee and so on, then the Bloatdrone with the speeders provides the best overall performance. Finally, the Myphitic Blighthauler. Here we don't have any options of the weapons, but we have to select a ranged weapon profile for the missile launcher. We can select Krak missiles or Frag missile. So here we are comparing with. Here we see the Krak missile shooting at a multi-wound target, then the Krak missile at a 3-wound target, 2-wound target, and 1-wound target. And why the damage is different is because we have of course if we shoot a Poxwalker, for example, and we do a 6 in damage, it doesn't really matter. You can only effectively do 1 damage or 1 wound. So here we see for targets with a wound characteristic of 2 or higher, it's typically best to shoot the Krak missile. So here we can see the Frag missile is typically better for a toughness than a toughness 1-2 target. So the Frag missile is better for, let's say, shooting at some low wound targets, and then you can do some damage. But if your opponent's units have more than 2 wounds or 2 wounds, then it's better to shoot the Krak missile consistently. And if we look at the range damage, so it's interesting to see that the effect of having +1 to hit and have 3 models in the unit, this is quite substantial. So here the blue is a Blighthauler at 12 inches shooting its multi-melta, a Krak missile, and its bile spurt. So here it will be doing, let's say, against intercessors, it will be doing around 3 damage, and against some, it could be doing 4 damage against some orc boys. But if we have the 3+ to hit, then we have consistently, it's the orange curve, we get of course many more hits and many more wounds. So there is a very significant effect to bring 3 models in a Blighthauler unit, and the damage is increased by 33% on average. So this is quite significant and something really to consider for this unit. If we look at the melee damage, so again we assume the Blighthauler starts its turn locked in melee. It can shoot the weapons with the target at -1 to hit. It cannot shoot the Bile Spurt or the Frag missiles because they are blast, and then make its 3 melee attacks with 4+ or 3+ to hit if they have 3 models in the unit. So here the blue line is the standard with only, let's say, 1 or 2 models in the unit. So here we would be doing some okay damage in melee. But again, if we have 3 units and they hit on 3+, then we get, and also they're shooting the weapons better, then we get 33% more, around 30-40% more damage on average. So the Gnashing Maw is doing some okay damage by melee attacks, but most damage comes from shooting the weapons at the point blank range. The gray here is the actual melee combat, doing, let's say, 0.5 to 1 wound depending on the target. So this concludes basically the first part of the analysis. So here is the summary and some final thoughts. So for the Plagueburst Crawler, the entropy cannons are the best option for long range anti-vehicle shooting, and it's 10 points cheaper than the Plagueburst Speeders. Remember, of course, to upgrade it with accelerated entropy 1 command point to have more consistent damage output on tough opponents with 3 wounds and upwards. Which will be mostly what you would be aiming for with these entropy cannons. The speeders are a good option if you plan to go for short range, but risk, of course, that the Plagueburst Crawler gets locked in combat. But they are better also as a defensive weapon. They can shoot Overwatch, and they are better if the Plagueburst Crawler is locked in combat. So in melee, the speeders are definitely the best option because you can shoot quite a lot of shots that auto hit instead of your entropy cannons where you have 2 shots with 5+ to hit. So it's not very likely you will get a lot of shots every turn. The Slugger and the Volley Gun are quite equal in terms of damage. So for most purposes, it's better to save the 5 points and just stay with the Slugger, which also has the range advantage, and the 36-inch range of the Slugger is very good together with the entropy cannon that has a 36-inch. For the Foetid Bloatdrone, if you plan to stay back with your Bloatdrones, which is probably not how you would normally use them, then you could consider the Hvy Blightlauncher at 140 points. But for melee, the Flesh Mower is the cheapest option and can do very good damage, but then you don't have any ranged capability. So for the Bloatdrones, the Plague Speeder at 155 points is the best all-round option for the Foetid Bloatdrone, doing good damage in both short range and melee, and it has good defensive capabilities with Overwatch and shooting the speeders at point blank range. But of course it has been increased in price compared to before. So 155 points, it could be quite hefty in any case. And then finally, for the little brother of the group, the Myphitic Blighthauler, there is only one weapon option, and it's 100 points. You can only have to select the profile of Frag or Krak missile every time you shoot, and the Krak missile is the best option for 2 wound targets or higher, as the analysis show here. It has decent range and melee damage, and we have a significant damage increase by taking 3 models in the unit, because it gives +1 to hit, and therefore you will be hitting on 3+ instead of 4+, considerably increasing the damage output. So with these words, this concludes the video. So stay tuned for the extensive point-for-point comparison of these 3 units, where we'll be looking at which is the best value for your points at different roles. So I'm very excited to see which one will be declared the winner, which will get the gold medal. But until then, if you have some comments for the weapon options of the Daemon Engines, or what is your preferences, please leave a comment. If you like this video, please press the like button. You can subscribe also to my channel. It will be highly appreciated. And where I will be posting more Death Guard tactics videos. So with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye bye.